Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors are literally losing new hires by lunchtime of the day that they start. And this is happening very, very quickly at the fastest rate in history in February. Alarm bells? I think so. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you here. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Welcome back, everyone else. There is obviously a big labor shortage right now. In the West, it's not just in America, it's happening in Canada, in Australia, many different European countries as well. And this is a big concern for big auto, especially big auto in Detroit, where it's difficult, becoming harder and harder for Ford, GM, and Stellantis to keep their workers. However, it could be the hardest for Ford of the big three. And I'll get to why in just a minute. Right now, Michigan auto industry has its hiring signs literally out on the road, but few are applying, and some who do are said to be quitting before lunch. The Detroit Free Press says that this is a nationwide problem for the auto industry that has hit many businesses, not just Ford and GM and Stellantis. However, this issue is now reverberating to the biggest car makers in the world. The problems are so serious that the Michigan Automakers Association has increased its budget and brought in a new director of workforce development to aggressively promote auto manufacturing jobs in order to correct the serious problems that this is causing. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of people employed by motor vehicle and parts manufacturers in Detroit declined by 3,500 in January. But the problem got a lot worse in February, as the decrease continued with a decline of 18,000 jobs in that month alone. By comparison, in February last year, the sector actually added 4,000 jobs. The data is especially concerning when considering that employment across all other sectors, even mining and logging, is actually growing. For example, last month, mining and logging companies added 9,000 jobs. In construction, 60,000 jobs were added. By contrast, 18,000 were lost in big auto in Detroit. If you actually compare the two together and you look at the trends, it does seem to be particularly concerning. During the fourth quarter of last year, there were about 990,000 people employed in the motor vehicle and parts manufacturing sectors, said Jason Miller, Associate Professor of Logistics in Michigan State's University Department of Supply Chain Management. Miller's data comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Miller and other experts say the data does not reflect how many of the jobs lost might be due to layoffs, where the jobs still exist but are not active at the moment, or people who quit, leaving a job vacancy. But industry leaders say they are hiring and struggling to find and keep the talent. The evidence is clear. The auto industry and its wages are not keeping pace with the rest of the world, said Steve Melnick, a business professor at Michigan State University. With the internet and job sites such as Monster and others, potential employees are looking at the total package, and this total package does not look good for the auto industry, in particular for Ford. He said low starting wages, lack of security initially, and benefits factor into the equation. Auto industry employers are not only competing with each other for talent, they're competing with other industries that are strapped by the same labor shortages as well, he said. It's a big concern. It will have an impact if the bleeding continues, said Carla Balow, CEO of the Center for Automotive Research in Ann Arbor. The Detroit Free Press says that part of the drop in employment is from the global shortage of semiconductor chips used in car parts. The shortage has disrupted production and led to layoffs. But Balow said the part shortage has also been a blessing because the factories don't have enough employees to run full time right now, even if there were adequate parts available. In other words, it's not just the semiconductor supply chain chip shortage that's causing these issues for Ford and General Motors and Stellantis in the US. The reality is they don't have enough employees to run their factories at full capacity. Even if they had enough of these chips, they still couldn't build the cars. There is the secondary impact that you have to train these new workers, Balo said. If there are a lot of untrained workers on the line, that impacts vehicle quality. There's an additional cost of having to get them trained, and it's a burden for the workers that are already there. So this is causing morale problems as well, he said. The Detroit Free Press says that factory work often requires long, odd hours, and the work can be monotonous and is physically taxing on the body. The UAW actually says that it's become common for General Motors to hire 10 temporary workers and only 6 to 8 to actually show up for their first day on the job. Then only half of those are left by the end of the day. Part of the problem is that new hires and low seniority workers are assigned the 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. shift called second shift. Some just don't want to do it, he said. He claimed that the hours, the monotony of the job, and the job being very physical, taking a toll on your body, leads to them wanting to leave very quickly. Balo actually said you shouldn't underestimate the physicality of the work they're having to do. She worked in a factory, an automotive factory, for a few days a week while she was in college. And she said she could barely walk because my calves and legs were so sore after each shift. In addition, she said that some auto industry companies have seen 100% turnover in their staff over the past year, and they struggle to keep new hires. Apparently, Ford and GM say that if someone starts in the morning and is still there after lunch, they're actually happy. But a big part of the problem is the wages that the big three are actually paying. The UAW national contract with the Detroit 3 defines these wages. New hires usually start off as temporary or temp, earning $16 per hour. The idea of temps is not new. They've been around since the mid-1940s, usually as part of staffing agencies such as Kelly Services, when office workers would fill in for permanent workers who took vacation or other time off. The Detroit automakers started relying on them in the 60s and 70s to cover high absenteeism on Mondays and Fridays, as well as summer vacation times and other times when they needed staffing. If and when these temporary workers are converted to permanent, their wage rises by $1 from 16 to 17 US dollars per hour. If they work there for 8 years, their wage could potentially increase to up to 28 US dollars an hour. Not exactly a big incentive for long-term dedication to the company. For example, a legacy worker, someone hired before 2007, so at least 15 years, can earn between 28 and 33 US dollars per hour. So the issue is that other industries and jobs offer higher wages and benefits walking through the door, such as Von Mauer, a department store in Livonia. It has signs on its doors that it says it's hiring at 19 US dollars an hour with 7 holidays off and growth opportunities. So you can walk into a department store, get a job with no experience that pays 3 US dollars more per hour, and the work is much easier. You can see why people aren't lasting. Apparently, it's now common that people working at Target or fast food chains are actually making more than employees at General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. General Motors has had pretty significant challenges recently, they say, with actually getting new hires. And then even more challenges with getting them to stick around. However, there's one reason that employees may want to work for Stellantis first, General Motors second, and Ford last: profit sharing. In 2021, Stellantis employees were eligible for a $14,700 US dollar profit sharing check. General Motors workers took home $10,250 US dollars in profit sharing, and Ford employees only $7,000 US dollars in profit sharing. Even in spite of that fact, Stellantis is saying they are also struggling seriously with retaining staff and having high turnover. A company spokesperson said there are any number of reasons people may leave a job in manufacturing facilities and are likely the same across a number of industries. These include shift schedules, overtime, childcare issues, or they just don't like the type of work. The company said that they are facing significant hiring challenges right now. With low unemployment rates across the country, we have had to work a bit harder to keep our pipelines full. Now, the Detroit Free Press says there's only one possible solution to this problem that the big three are facing right now. And it's not very likely to be something that will happen. They say it's in the best interest of the Detroit Big Three to raise hourly wages in contract talks on October the 23rd, when the current union agreement expires. The problem with this, though, is that if they do increase wages, the companies are not judged by investors on how high their wages are, they're judged on their profitability. So when this contract expires in late 2023 and the union negotiates for higher pay, which obviously will be in the interest of the big three because they need to start getting people to actually stay in the job, the problem will be their profitability will actually decrease. So it's a double-edged sword here. And the big problem here is that currently Tesla's margins are clearly much higher than GM, Stellantis, or Ford. And yet it actually pays its employees more than they all do. Now, apparently, Tesla does this by providing other benefits, including medical cover, dismemberment insurance, and many others, including shares, which has enriched Tesla employees significantly. These comprehensive employee benefits are much greater in terms of the compensation for workers than General Motors, Ford, or Stellantis. So Tesla has potentially a bigger lead here. They already pay their employees more in terms of their overall package they're getting. For example, many of Tesla's staff are now millionaires based on the share packages they've received over the years, and Tesla already makes a much bigger profit. So what can GM, Ford, and Stellantis actually do in order to solve this challenge? In an interview between Andrew Ross Sorkin, financial columnist at the New York Times, and Mary Barra, CEO of General Motors, the salaries of employees at Tesla versus General Motors were discussed. It appears by my math that on average, Tesla employees who are non-unionized appear on an hourly basis that they're making more money than a unionized worker, for example, at GM, Andrew Ross said to Mary Barra. Now, Barra replied, and this is what she said, "There's no clarity over this matter. It is not just about hourly wages, but about additional benefits such as health cover and a pretty robust system." But the truth is, realistically, Tesla does pay its workers more and it does actually give them more benefits. Now, Musk actually tweeted in response to this show, and he said, "This is true. Tesla employees get health insurance, stock, and other benefits." Now, compounding this issue for 2022, and what could be a significant problem for Ford going forward, is they actually just laid off thousands of people. They said the reason was a shortage of semiconductors. On Monday last week, Ford temporarily laid off thousands of hourly workers, many who will struggle to pay their bills without supplemental unemployment benefits. And they did this across several plants across the United States. Most production ground to a halt at Ford's factories in Chicago, Illinois, Wayne, Michigan, and their Mexico plant as well. At Ford's Kansas City assembly plant, the company idled production of its lucrative F-150 pickup trucks, while another shift for Ford's transit vans will stop running. Output at Ford's Kentucky truck and Louisville assembly plants, as well as its Dearborn, Michigan truck plant, will be operated either on single shifts or a reduced schedule. Ford also said it would eliminate overtime at its Oakville factory in the Canadian province of Ontario. At Ford's 98-year-old Chicago assembly plant, CAP, in the Hegswich neighborhood, thousands of workers are out of work for the duration of the next few weeks and face hardship due to the idling of Ford production. Ford's assembly plant in Chicago has over 6,000 workers and produces the Explorer and Lincoln Aviator sports utility vehicles, as well as the Police Interceptor utility vehicle. One worker said this to WSWS.org. "We've been out of BCM or body controller modules for a long time now. They've been recycling them and just parking the vehicles outside. Body controller modules are electronic units in cars that control different vehicle parts, including windows, mirrors, air conditioners, locking, and more." Many of Ford's plants and other auto parts suppliers and its workforce across the region of Chicago and the industrialized region of Northwest Indiana, including Lear Seating, will also be impacted or just completely idled. Ford's Chicago stamping plant in Chicago Heights, which employs 1,300 workers, will supply sheet metal stamping for CAP, will also be shut down. So what about General Motors Factory Zero? Factory Zero is GM's newest and most technically advanced plant. It will be General Motors' epicenter for EV production, with a 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup already rolling off the assembly line. A Hummer SUV will follow, and eventually the 2024 Silverado electric pickup. The Silverado EV will also be made in Orion Township after GM expands that plant. But GM said Factory Zero will eventually employ 2,000 people. However, it now runs on a crew of only 525 union represented people. The factory has half of the people needed in the body shop and the paint shop, but it's getting by because of the parts shortage, which is severely limiting GM's electric vehicle production. On February the 18th, GM put out a notice that it was looking to transfer 350 hourly workers to Factory Zero, but then it pulled back on February the 26th after deciding it did not need any more people yet because it doesn't have enough chips to even build the vehicles. Now, GM is saying they're going to solve this by simply recalling people who were laid off in 2019. GM is just assuming that these people have done nothing since 2019, haven't moved on with their lives, and 3 years later, they're going to say, yeah, no worries, GM, we'll just turn up now and we'll work for you again. I personally think that's a pretty unlikely scenario. So here's the big issue, right? General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis are hiring people as temporary workers pretty much only now. Because if you're a permanent worker, you get the profit sharing check, higher pay, and 70% of your wages still paid to you if you're laid off, which is the exact reason why GM, Ford, and Stellantis are only hiring people on a temporary basis. Now, here's what one employee said. I'll be fighting to become a permanent employee. Otherwise, I'll be leaving. The company will want them as temps to keep costs down. But I heard that story about Target and $24 an hour. That's incredible. How can you keep people if McDonald's pays more than the big three on an hourly basis? Our wages are our wages. We're going off the national agreement, but it's always being talked about because we need to retain people. How exactly are GM, Ford, and Stellantis going to retain these people they need if they're paying less than McDonald's? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm intrigued. How do you think they're going to do this? I don't understand personally. I mean, people are leaving GM, Ford, and Stellantis in droves because their pay is less than department stores and McDonald's and, Burger King and wherever else. I don't get it. I don't know what they're going to do. Let me know. What's the solution here? Do you think this will be a big problem for the big three? I think it's a big problem right now. I mean, they're basically putting a lot of their factories on half shifts in order to try to deal with this big exodus of these temporary workers. And it looks like this problem is only getting worse.